Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It is December the 9th. This will be our chart listing for the day, and it was a really busy day. We had a nice trend up, and then a huge sell-off, um, and then we kind of went into this flatter trading range here. There wasn't really any high volatility news. There was a crude oil report that came out right about 9:30 when this sell-off started, and uh, I guess it was fairly negative. So maybe that affected the market selling off here. I haven't looked at the news. I wasn't actually watching when this happened. Um, I forgot to mention this yesterday, but it probably won't, I didn't figure it would affect our chart lesson anyway, but I got summoned in for jury duty, so I was out this morning for jury duty. Got a break for about an hour, and I got a break till lunchtime. Actually, they let us go around 9:45, 10 o'clock, and they let us go till lunch. And so I came over here, opened the charts, did a quick uh, midday chart, posted a midday chart, and then I had to leave again. By the time I got through, it was late in the afternoon, so I didn't even come back to the office till this evening to do the chart lesson. So I didn't even watch the chart print today for the most part. When I came in, when I did the daily, we were probably about like this right here, so it was just right at 10 o'clock. And so I didn't get to see all this print, and we weren't really selling off that hard by that point. And I was looking for a retest of the high, thinking that because you see that's the first break of that trend line. But we don't ever get it. This thing just goes into free fall. So I don't know if the crude oil had something to do with it, or if there's some other issue that came out. Like I said, I haven't even looked at the news. It doesn't matter regardless. All we care about is that it's moving. There's a clear trend line working down through here. Turns out it's a two-tiered channel. You didn't know that until it went lower here and then couldn't break out here and it headed lower again. So then you just do a measured distance over, and that's exactly where it bounces. And so, but there's also this shorter term red one in here, just like there's a shorter term red one in here. You may not be able to see it until I back out a little better. But it's there, and there's a shorter term one working here. Got a break and a new low. This one's coming down a break and a new low. This one's coming up a break and then two legs up to a new high. And there's several of them in there. And then we just kind of went flat. Here, there's a little channel working down later, but not much else happened after that. We just kind of went sideways, and this is a nice range here you could trade. But anyway, let me back out. We'll talk about the trades. And also, just for a heads up, I do have to go back to jury duty again tomorrow. I'm hoping they will release me. Shouldn't stop me from doing a chart lesson. May not be a midday chart posted on the website if you're one of our members that like to look at that. But we'll just have to see what time they release me, and hopefully I get out of this thing and don't have to spend several days there or something. But anyway, you never know with jury duty, but I've been called in a couple times before, and usually they just release you so after a day or so. But anyway, let's talk about the trades. I backed out here, and I will say this. Excuse me, my throat's bothering me a little bit this afternoon. I told you yesterday I've been experimenting a little bit different with a little bit different chart. I opened back up the 2,000 tick chart because they fixed the issue that was causing the ticks. So if you want to go back to the 2,000, that's okay. But I opened up one today and just kind of compared it to this one, and you can't hardly tell any difference. I actually like this one better because the signal bars are a little smaller than they are on a 2,000 tick. But for the most part, you're getting the same number of failed breaks or breaks and moves, very similar typical number of bars. So I'm thinking maybe this 5,500 may be the sweet point for now. It could change again, but I like it a little better. I really like the 6,500. The only problem I had with it got to where the signal bars were so big that you were usually having to enter with more than a 2-point stop. But and once you get experience at this, that's not that big a deal. But until you're really good at reading the price action, you don't want to risk more than 2 points on most trades. If you don't, your math is not going to work out and you're going to be in trouble. So, needless to say, I'm thinking that, maybe the 5,500 may be what people want to go with until we figure something, until something changes again or whatever. But anyway, enough about that. Let's back out here, talk about the trades and move along. And there's a lot of them, quite a bit, because it was a big move down. There's not as many on the way up, but it was a big move down. But the first trade I saw was a short coming in around 7 o'clock this morning. Notice you got a channel working down. You get a break here, and you actually get two legs up. You got one leg there with two legs, and then you got a little two-legged correction, then another leg up. And then it starts looking for the retest. And you don't want to take that first entry, but when it shoots back through the EMA and pulls back and tests it and gives you this big bearish bar right here, I'd let it break below that one and maybe drop a limit order back a tick into that or so. And I mean, you could just use a stop. It's fairly, how big is that bar? Since I've changed the size of this, 58. So that's a 3-point bar there. So, it just seems like we can't get away from that lately, even going to a 5,500 chart. So needless to say, you could use a stop there, but I'd suggest a limit order and try to get a tick or two better entry. Didn't matter how you did it, it turned out to be a good trade. And once we went lower, I would have looked for a measured move from that leg. You can see we basically had almost a perfect measured move there. And then it bounced. And you're coming up. You actually have a failed second entry short here, but you weren't back to the trend line. You didn't really have enough evidence to support this trend line yet. You're looking at that because you draw it off those first few swings, but you didn't really have enough evidence for that one. If you took this one, it worked. I guess I probably should circle it. It's a good trade, and it does come off the EMA, but I'm going to go ahead and circle it. It probably should be circled. Looking at it earlier, I didn't really like it because we weren't back to this trend line, but you really didn't have enough evidence for the blue one or the red one on this side, although you could have drawn this off the top and slid it over and seen that when it bounced right there. But you also need to draw that blue trend line that's coming right off of those swings there, and that turns out to be kind of a spiking channel for the day. But at this point, I'd be more interested in this red one, at least until prices come back to this blue one again and confirm it. You really got two swings there, and this one confirms it here. So, but anyway, now you got two swings here, and this pullback confirms this one. It's really a first entry, but notice here you got move back, move up, and another move back. So even though it went a little higher there, you could still consider that two swings back to the trend line, which is your key entry point, and you got a nice bullish bar there. It's kind of close to this high. I think there's still enough room to get out there, even with a stop. Now, it would have been a 4-tick failure if you used a stop there. So I would let it break higher and probably drop it a tick in. You can see you could have gotten filled 2 or 3 ticks into that bar, but at least a tick in. You don't want to be too conservative, maybe 2, just to give yourself an extra tick, and just in case it turns down there, because that is a double top across there. So you got to be careful about that. Turns out it doesn't matter. It keeps going higher. You definitely don't want to take that breakout pullback long there. Then it pulls back, and it looks like you may get a failed. You actually do get a failed second entry short there, but the fact that it didn't get to the high here and it kind of pushed through right there, I'd wait for it to come back to the EMA at a minimum before I would think about entering. There's a second entry here because there is a little single tick, but look at all those matching highs and stuff. You really want to get a bullish bar and a break above it first. And so your second entry triggers here, but look at that big bearish bar. It did go lower first and turn out the upside. If you took it, it would have ended up working, but I don't think you want to enter there. You're not back to the EMA. Also, you've got a trend line working down through there that you don't have a break of, and you probably don't get your break till here. and maybe even consider it here. Um, but by here, you definitely have a break. Let's just look at it off the lower side and maybe a little steeper. So I will normally do this. You want it to fit both sides. You want your price action to fit in there neatly. It looks more like a, there, and you can see that. That's it. You do get a break there. Um, but notice that you get a one attempt to go lower, and then you go higher, and then you get a second attempt. So, and that bounce, so that's a nice double bottom. Two attempts to go lower. This one bounces right off the trend line. You get a nice bullish bar. Um, so I like that one, and it takes off. You figure it's going to at least come back up and test these highs up here. Even if it doesn't, and you can see it's found a little resistance before it pushed higher. You get a little breakout pullback long, but I wouldn't take that right there. And there is a short-term trend line working right up through there as well. Should have already had all these on here. You can see that one working up. It's holding prices neatly there. And there's one coming down here. Looks like it right there. You can see that fits nicely too. It kind of goes flat here. It's almost a repeat pattern of this. It's just a little smaller, tighter pattern. It's really not the trend. The channel is not, but the little range is. And notice this one. It's working down and goes sideways, working down and goes. So it's kind of a repeat pattern. And then it bounces right off that trend line and goes higher. This one's a little tricky. And that's why both of these are a little bit tricky. So that's why I made them green. This one is close. You don't have a lot of room here, but there's enough reasons to take that trade. And then this is a repeat pattern. So this one is right. This one could almost be blue as well. It's not a perfect signal bar, but notice how you've got all those closes and matching lows, and it closes a little bit lower and then turns up. That's that perfect trap. And usually if you can catch that, you can watch this thing run pretty strongly, and you can see it took off pretty strongly. And then we don't quite get to the high. We make a lower high, and we shoot right through the EMA. We come back. You get a failed second entry long. You could take that short. It's a little bit of overlap there. There's a couple of dojis in. This is more of a bearish bar, even though it's got a little green, but that's a doji for sure. And so there's three or more bars, and one of them's a doji. So that's congestion. And there's always a chance you could get trapped there. So I'm not crazy about entering that one, even though it's a failed second entry long, because you've had two legs down, and this is a huge leg. And it would have ended up working out, but you had to kind of ride it out. So, but I still think it should be green. And this is the better trade when it pulls back and makes a little triple top across there. So now you got a double test of that, a double test of the EMA. You still aren't back to the trend line over here, but I think that's okay by this point, because now you've got enough more reasons to enter. And it goes lower, and then it comes back and touches right here. You didn't have that trend line there yet. You wouldn't have had that there yet. So let me back up just a little bit, and so that would have made this trade even stronger when you don't have that trend line there. If you just take this over to where it's on the far right side of your chart, it's a little close to these lows. So that still gives you, especially this first one, but it is a trap. But when you get the double trap, you just about can't ignore that. And then it comes back here, and it gives you two swings. And this one's right off the EMA. And this is a second entry short. Notice that new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry, big bearish bar. You might have considered using a limit order there, and you would have got filled. It would have come back and filled you here as well. But then you get a confirmation of that trend line right here, and just go short below that one too. It looks very similar to that, almost another little repeat pattern. It's a failed break. There's some matching. There's a couple of dojis in there, and it's kind of sideways, but you get a failed break out of that turns down and confirms that trend line. That's a relatively bearish bar. You might have tried a limit order to see if you could get a little better entry, but But this thing looks like it probably shut down pretty quick and then pulled back, and you probably wouldn't even got a limit order filled where the original stop was going to be if you did that. But hopefully you got in one of these and maybe you had a runner going, because this is a nice sell-off. And then if you draw this line right here off all those lows, you see that something's happening, and just slide that over. And you know, you don't know it's any good till about right here. And again, that's a first entry, and there's a second entry here. It's not a pretty one. It's right at the lows. It's a double bottom. I don't think you want to go short there. Wait and see if you get a little better, something a little better, and you could actually count this as a new high because you got all those matching highs there. It's like a double top and a little failed break higher. And then it pushes down. It tries to go higher once, tries to go higher twice. So that's like a failed second entry long, and it's got a big bearish bar. It did break the trend line, but you're probably going to make a new low. And I forgot to talk about the measured move here. That's your first move down, and when you started going lower here, I'd be looking for a measured move. We don't quite make it. You can see we come up a little short. But you wouldn't have known that until here. You see we came within maybe 4 or 5 ticks of making it. But this support took over here, and we just couldn't get below it. So it didn't really matter. And when that happens, generally you're going to go higher. And you see before we closed, we did go higher. So anyway, you get your, where were we? I think we were right here. Yeah, you got your first break. Or no, I can't remember where we were now. Losing my mind. I guess we were right here. Or no, we were back here, weren't we? Shoot. Maybe we were back here. That's your first break, move, and then you get a second entry short right here, a bearish bar. We already had a break. We didn't have a new low yet, so there's reasons to be looking for a good entry, but we're not quite back to this main trend line, which has been confirmed yet. So I was a little leery of this one, but it's hard to ignore a two-legged pullback to the EMA and a really strong downtrend. So I'm going to give that one a green one, and it is really close. It could even be red. It's that close. But when it came back again and went right off that trend line and made a double top there, definitely, even though that's a little doji, just go short right there because that's your key entry point. And this one takes off, and off we go. And you're looking for that measured move. Notice you got 2 swings there, so you've got a shorter term channel working, or trend working down. This confirms it. The only reason I made this one green, it also comes back and tests the midline on the bigger channel, which that's a good sign you could be going lower. But the reason I don't like this one is this is now the low of the day. It's lower than this low here, which was the low of the day. And so when you start to get to the low of the day, you got to be really, really careful going short right there, right at the low of the day. There's not much room to get out. You might have used a limit order to make sure you had enough room, and you can see it started hesitating before it pushed on lower. And then you get another little failed tick up, but you got to go short at the low of the day again, and see, and then it bounces. So I like this one because now that's the first break of this shorter term trend line. We test that EMA again, that midline again right there, and that's a failed second entry long as well. It's not really a failure because it would have got a scalp, but you can treat it like one because it didn't go very far and then it's turning down. And so I like that one, and you got enough room to get out on this one. And this one turns out to go all the way down to the lower side, the equal distance. And it's still really weak. Notice how it's touching that. It's holding, but it's not bouncing until here. And you can't go long here yet. You don't want to go long. And you got a little trend line working up. You get a break and a couple of little pushes up. We're still not back to here. We're on the other side here, so we should be moving back there. So you got to be real careful. There's a second entry short right there, and there is a double top, but there's not much room between that EMA. I just think you're better off to wait. And you get a second entry short right there counting off this high, but it's not a very pretty bar. It's another doji. But then you get your failed second entry long right there, and you got just enough room to get out. I'd probably consider thinking about a limit order right there. Uh, but it was a quick, easy scalping, got just enough, and then it bounces. And it comes back up, and then guess what? It makes a triple top here with a nice bearish bar. Um, and that's your first break of the main trend line. So I like going short there. This turns out to be a pretty good trade. And then you do get a failed break below this double bottom, but you don't have enough evidence that you can go long yet. You don't want to be gambling. If this thing was way down here and it was a mile away from the EMA, maybe. But look what I push it. It comes back, pulls back, tests, and then it finds resistance right here. It's tempting to go short right there, but look at all that overlap. You got some dojis in there again. Just wait, because you don't have a real clear, if even a break of this yet. You don't really get your break till here. Notice that. Coming right up through there, and you don't get your break here, and it pushes up to a new high, and then it turns down. So go short right there. It's a huge bar, though. So I'd say let it break lower and drop a limit order, and look, it comes back. It would have filled you way back up here, and then it goes right down to the bottom where you expect it to go. And now you got some evidence that there's support here, and it bounces there again. And you had this trend line coming down a break and a move to a new low. So I like going long right there. Comes up. The only reason I don't like going short there is you don't have a break of this trend line yet. It would have worked. It's a pretty bearish bar, but I think I'd wait, and it ends up making a little double bottom and that little failed break lower and turning up. So I like going long there. It's a failed second entry short, and you're looking for a retest of this little trend line. This one is borderline green because it's right in the middle, and those aren't always, if you're not coming off the low or the high, they're not always as reliable. So I'm gonna change that one to green. It probably should be green because it is right in the middle in no man's land. But it pushes on up, makes a new high. Turns out to be, you treat that like a failed break higher. If this bar right here would have ticked higher before it turned down, I'd like going short there, but it's all that stacked up. It's probably going to pull back, and that's exactly what it does. It pulls back and gives you another chance to enter. This is a fairly big bar, but it sets a trend line right off those first bars, and this touches it, and then you get another confirmation over here. But I like going short there. But it is a pretty big bar, so if you want to skip that one, don't. That's the thing I tell people. People will send me their chart and they'll say, "Should I have taken this trade?" And their common sense is, and the rules are telling them probably don't take it, but yet then they watch it work, and then they think, "Oh, I should have taken that one," and they'll send me an email. But I always tell them, if you followed the rules and you missed a trade because you followed the rules, you did the right thing, because the next time you try to enter there, you will get burned, and that's what they do. They try to trick you up. So if you followed the rules, just because you see a big move doesn't mean you always get to take it. Look at that big move right there. But you don't want to risk taking. There's some reasons to even consider that, but you don't want to risk that, because the next time it does like, it does like maybe this, it ticks higher and turns right down and stops you out. So don't risk it. Wait till wait till a little better trade comes along. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, that's a big bar, so you may not risk that one. And then you get a second entry short over here, and it went higher first turn and goes out the low side on the second entry. It kind of confirmed that. You made another lower high. And the thing that would have told you might get a break here of that possible trend line is because we overshot it down here. Maybe it's down here, but odds are it's going to be right there where it bounced the first time, and this is an overshoot, and that usually means you might get a break on the other side. Not always, but generally that's what it leads to. Pushes down, makes a new low, and it reverses. So the price action worked perfectly there, and you can see even this support and resistance is coming into play. It's causing support and resistance on both sides. So it's fighting both of those patterns, and it's probably one person may not see the little channel, and one person may see the channel and don't see that, or maybe they see them both and they don't know which one's taking precedence, so they're trading it both ways, and so you can see that. Um, but anyway, I hope that made sense about no trade is sometimes the best trade, because another one will come along shortly. On a day like this, look at the trades. They're all over the place. So don't get antsy, especially trying to pick bottoms. And don't be too quick to wait for the ones that come to the key entry point. If you just wait on those, you're probably doing good. And if you hadn't heard me talk about key entry points, go to the website. There's some free articles on key entry points. Just use the search function, and you can read about key entry points because they are super important, and they can make you or break you. But anyway, that last trade is right into the 2 o'clock hour. There's a great long right there. Look at that new low after we've had the break and the move to a new low. And then you get a first entry short, pull back second entry short, and look how it went right back through the EMA. Of course, we're swinging both sides now, so you can almost trade this thing both ways regardless. But you got this little trend line working down, so you got to pay attention to it too. But that's a perfect place to enter, and look at it go. That's a nice reversal pattern. Study that pattern right there. And it shoots through the EMA. That's your first sign. It doesn't get any resistance off the EMA. It pulls back, and then it tries to go higher, and it pulls down again, and you get a failed second entry short, and then a nice bullish tight reversal bar. Go long right there, man. I love those patterns. Just don't get much better than those. And they work. They generally work. So, and that's it for today. That's another 30 minutes worth. It's been some interesting trading lately. Yesterday was a little tougher. Today was not that tough. What's probably tough for some people is when you got to switch gears right here, because it was all uphill and looked really strong, and then suddenly it's all downhill and really strong. So, but let me show you this. I didn't talk about it on the way down. Here's that reversal pattern. Notice how you didn't quite get back to your trend line or your trend channel line up here. That's telling you something. The market's getting weaker, and it doesn't get much bounce off the EMA, and it turns and it doesn't get any bounce this time, and the trend line itself holds no resistance hardly at all. It just shoots right through, pulls back, tests it, and you get that failed second entry long. I explained to you why I didn't necessarily like that one, because that's the first break of this trend line, this trend channel, and a lot of times they'll trap you there and try to go higher. But then you get another attempt to go higher, and so now you got a double test, and that's going to trap people to the long side. Just go short right there. And then you get a two-legged pull back to the EMA. I mean, that's another nice reversal pattern. That when you don't get any resistance off the EMA or the trend line, and then suddenly you're finding resistance off the EMA and another trend line on the other side, you've got a reversal. Even if it's only temporary, we could have gotten a break right in here and made a new low and gone back higher again. But it didn't happen. We just kept going lower and lower and lower. So hopefully that makes sense to you. But good trading day. I hate I missed it. I'm hoping I can get some trading in tomorrow, but I definitely won't be trading in the morning because I got to go to court again. And no, I'm not in trouble for court. It's jury duty. Just so somebody came on and caught the tail end of this. Didn't want you to think that I'm going to court because I'm in trouble. No, I've been summoned for jury duty, so I'll be off tomorrow, most likely, unless they let me go really early. If they do, I may come in and see what's happening. But I won't be here in the morning, so no midday chart lesson. And I'm assuming that lawyers don't work that hard and judges don't work that hard. So I'm doubt seriously we'd be in court past 5 o'clock, and as long as we get out before 5 o'clock, I'll come do a chart lesson. So, because I'm not planning on doing one Friday again. So I know most of you'd like to see one tomorrow. So I'll do my best unless something crazy happens. But anyway, hope you've had a good day today because you had a nice opportunity here. Hopefully you're having a great week. regardless, we'll be back again to do it tomorrow, hopefully. And I'm out of here for tonight. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.